Hi, my name is Jack Wallen. I'm here again. I hope you're not getting sick and tired of me because I am not getting sick and tired of you. And isn't that the most important thing? Maybe not. Maybe I'm just totally confused here. Anyway, I have something that I want to share with you that I think is pretty important. And I've actually expressed this idea many, many times, but most often I've expressed it in terms of being an artist, being a writer, being an actor, whatever. And this time I want to broaden the scope of this idea into the realm of humanity, of being human. More importantly, being you. This was inspired earlier this week when my wife and I sat down and we watched the documentary, The Greatest Night in Pop. This was a documentary about the writing and recording of We Are the World. Now, I am a child of the 80s. I graduated high school in 1986, so yes, I was old. Young at heart. Young in spirit. Young in mind. Anyway, that's not the point. So I don't know if you're aware of We Are the World. You may be too young for it. I don't know, but let me give you the gist of it. So Lionel Richie, Michael Jackson, and Stevie Wonder were tasked to write a song to raise awareness and money of the starvation that was occurring in Africa. I'm not going to get into the heart of that because you need to watch the documentary, but suffice it to say that Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson wrote the song. Stevie, what were you thinking? Anyway, what they did was they reached out and they gathered some of the greatest voices in pop music. We're talking Steve Perry, Cyndi Lauper, Kenny Loggins. I'm drawing blanket names. The Boss, Bruce Springsteen. That's the name I was trying to come up with, and I don't know why I blanked on it. Tina Turner. The list went on and on and on and on and on. It was amazing. And on a side note, there was a moment when we're watching this documentary and they're recording, they're singing, and then all of a sudden Steve Perry sings his part and my heart just kind of jumped out of my chest. I mean, come on. Give it up for Steve Perry, right? Anyway, I have a theory about Journey. I think Journey taught my generation how to love, but that's a tangent. I'm sorry. I won't go on that anymore. So they gathered all these voices, okay? And I mean, A-list singers, amazing. Okay, I made that point. I'll move on. Another voice that they brought in was none other than Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan is an icon. Let's not mince words here. The man is an icon. He wrote some of the most influential and important folk songs in the history of music. Bob Dylan influenced so many singers. I cannot stress that enough. Bob Dylan is Bob Dylan, and there is no other performer like him. Whether you like his music or his voice or not, Bob Dylan rests at the top of the music mountain. He shares that peak with a lot of other musicians like Prince and Freddie Mercury and plenty of others. But Bob Dylan is important. And it's important that you understand that because of what I'm going to impart on you. Okay, so as you're watching this documentary, pay close attention. When the camera shows the entire group singing, pay close attention to Bob Dylan. I saw it. And it broke my heart. Partially because I can relate to what he experienced. And let me share with you exactly what that was. So they've been recording the song, and all of these glorious voices are singing out and having a blast and just doing their thing. And then they pull back and they show the shot of everybody singing the chorus. And you could see the look on Bob Dylan's face. He looked out of place. He looked uncomfortable. He looked depressed, down. He knew his voice could not stand up to all of these other voices. And that there was even a moment where they said, if you can't sing the high notes, just don't sing. We're not going to do octaves, just everybody up here. And so they're singing, and Bob Dylan is just standing there with his mouth just kind of barely moving. And it was sad. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of an analogy from my experience, my life. And this will explain to you partially why I empathized so much with Dylan. I performed the MC in Cabaret a few years ago. Now, it wound up being one of, I think, my greatest performances I've ever done. Through a lot of hard work on my part. But when I sat down at that first rehearsal, among all of these people who had these glorious Broadway voices, I was scared to death. I felt so out of place. I thought, there is no way I can pull this off. I am going to be the weak link in this chain, and it's going to destroy me. I'm going to walk out of this with no confidence and probably never perform again. And that is why I related so powerfully to what Bob Dylan was obviously going through. Now, there's a happy end to this story for both Bob and me. Not that we're on the same level. So through this entire time, they keep showing Bob Dylan in the crowd being uncomfortable and trying his best. And then it comes time for him to sing his solo. And he walks up to the mic, and he's got the music in front of him. And they play the track. And he opens his mouth and mumbles and whispers. Because he knows. He knows, just like we know, that his voice is not Steve Perry's voice. It's not Huey Lewis's voice. It's not. It's Bob Dylan's voice. And he was out of place and uncomfortable. And he couldn't do it. Every time they played the track back, he tried to sing and nothing came out. And you could see the look on his face, the look of pain. Almost as if he just wanted to leave. And then, out of nowhere, Stevie Wonder, in all of his brilliance, pulls Bob Dylan over to the piano and starts playing the song. And then, in a way that only Stevie Wonder can do, he sang the song imitating Bob Dylan right in front of Bob Dylan. Stevie Wonder imitating Bob Dylan in front of Bob Dylan for one reason: to remind Bob Dylan that he was Bob Dylan, that he was Bob freaking Dylan. And if you were watching close enough, you could see the life return in Dylan's face as he reminded himself, as he remembered who he was. And then they brought him back to the microphone and they played the track back, and Bob Dylan sang in his Bob Dylaniest best, and it was glorious. One take. One take was all he needed. And you could just feel the life return to him and everybody in the room. And it was a celebration. And he smiled at the end of it. Because he did what Bob Dylan and only Bob Dylan can do. He did Bob Dylan. He was himself. He wasn't trying to be Kenny Loggins or Kenny Rogers or Steve freaking Perry. He was being Bob freaking Dylan. Oscar Wilde once said, "Be yourself because everyone else is taken." And that's the lesson here that I saw so clearly in that documentary about We Are the World, when Bob Dylan forgot who he was and tried to be somebody else. And then in the end, he just said, "I'm going to be me." And that's exactly what he did, and it was beautiful. And that's what I'm here to say to you. As a person, not an artist, not a writer, not an actor, not anything else. As a person. In a world of so much the same, be a Bob Dylan. Be yourself. Be true to yourself. Know who you are. You have experienced so much. And only you are the sum total of everything that you've experienced, thought, felt, known. No one else is that. Only you. And I firmly believe, that that is one of the keys to being happy, or finding some semblance of peace in your life, is to just be you. And I know that there are some people out there that are still struggling to find out who they are. I've been there. I have been on that side of the coin. I have struggled. I spent years of my life and finally discovered who I was. And even after the discovery, there were moments in my life where I just walked away from who I was to try to be somebody else because somebody else wanted me to be somebody or something else. And in those times where I decided that I could not be me, I was miserable. So if you're still struggling to find out who you are, I understand. And it will take time. But you can do it. And once you find out who you are, hold on to that with all of your strength and never let it go. Walk through life as you. Because the world needs you. The world needs every individual it can get. Because this place is so much better with you and me and all of us being ourselves. That's all I have to say this time. I hope you take this to heart. And I hope you know how important it is to find out who you are and just be you as hard and often as you can be. Thank you for giving me a moment of your day, because I know time is precious. If maybe you've learned something or enjoyed what I've said, please share it with somebody, because I'm sure that there is someone in your life that is struggling with this very thing right now. And they need to know how important it is for them to be themselves, to be truthful and honest with who they are. Thank you very much, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful day being you.